What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hockeytown University. You are here with me once again, your host, Zach, and his beautiful co-hosts, Matt and Derek. What is going on, boys? Matt, welcome back, man. How you guys doing? How's the weekend?
Oh, it's fantastic. Zach had a wonderful day yesterday with the girlfriend out and about in Grand Rapids. A whole 1 year together. Feels like it's been an eternity, but it's a happy eternity, so not too upset with this. New Holland, drinks are on point up there. Everybody in Grand Rapids, go there. Wonderful. Gives me a Game of Thrones vibes if you like Game of Thrones. So you may walk out with $100 less, though, but it's worth it. Man, how was your weekend going, buddy?
Congratulations on the anniversary. Yeah, Matt, how was your weekend, bud?
Well, it was absolutely fantastic. I spent pretty much all day on the water yesterday. Went over to my grandma's lake because she has like an annual fireworks show, and we were waiting around all day. Got into 10 o'clock, and there was no fireworks. I was like, "What the hell? What's going on?" So I asked this pontoon boat that was sailing by if they were still going on, and they're like, "Nope, they're canceled." I was like, "Oh, cool. All right, well, let me just drive my ass home while I'm crying." But yeah, it was still pretty fun on the water. Always a good time. I said this to the boys off air, but one of my friends there just casually dropped the fact that he used to skate with Alex DeBrincat. So I asked him if he has any inside information. He doesn't, because Alex lost his number when he went big time. So that's kind of sad, but I get it. But yeah, once he signs with Detroit, which hasn't happened yet, it will happen though. We're going to hang out with him. We're going to take him out on the lake, and he's going to have a good time. He's going to be like, "You know what? I want to be here for 8 years, so let's do it."
We're going to take him out on the lake? He's going to take us out on the lake. Shit.
Yeah, hell yeah, you better.
Yeah, my weekend's good. Recording with the boys. Household duties all weekend. Nothing really too special. Got to play with the dogs. Met a nice little puppy next door that my neighbors were babysitting, so that was fun. Other than that, nothing really too out of the ordinary for me. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. But before we do, as usual, we appreciate y'all stopping by. Make sure that you are hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already, if you're new. If you're returning, we appreciate you returning. But as always, smash that like button. Frown upside down, right, Derek? We like it. And if you're on Spotify, make sure you are rating us 5 stars and you are following us. It definitely helps us out and makes us grow a lot bigger. So go ahead and do those things if you haven't already. So why don't we go ahead and jump into things based on the title? I'm sure you guys are already aware on what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about a little bit of Red Wings news, Filip Zadina, Kris Draper, the 3-on-3 tournament for the development camp that they had last week, talking about our top 10 prospect pool that was fan voted by you, the fans, on our YouTube community tab. And then we're going to have a little game where each and every one of us shows our opening night roster. Derek's was a little chaotic, so maybe he can go a little more in depth about that once we get to his. Like, and then, yeah, we'll screen share each and every one of our rosters, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So let's go ahead and talk about things. Let's start off with Kris Draper being named the assistant general manager while also staying as the director of amateur scouting. To be honest, I don't really know how too far in depth we want to go in this, other than, at least for me, this is a great thing for Kris Draper and for the organization. This guy truly has done nothing but great things for the organization, based on what he's drafted, based on the prospects that he goes out and watches, and just the type of talent that he's bringing into this team, and following along really closely with Steve Yzerman to make sure that this team in the long haul has a great future. And hopefully we can go back to a status of having 25 years in the playoffs consistently. What do you guys feel about it?
I mean, I think it's a good move for him. Do I really believe that he learned a lot from Ken Holland like he said he did? I don't know. That might be pushing it. I think Draper's just being a little too nice. But at the same time, I'm happy he learned everything that he had to learn. He knows all the areas now. I feel like it's a great fit for the Red Wings, so hopefully everything moves forward and he's able to do both these parties do justice at this point, because he's been doing well for the last 12 years anyways, so let's see if we can get a couple more years out of him, with him just knowing the exact lay of the land that the Red Wings need, being able to be with Stevie up there in the front office, knowing exactly what each other want, since they even played together, so that makes it even better. So I feel like there's going to be a good connection between those two from assistant and GM. So, Matt, how are you feeling about the situation?
I think it's really well deserved. I think ever since Kris Draper took over and he was kind of handling that whole scouting department and doing the later rounds of the draft, you could really see that his scouting team and the work he put in himself is really paying off, because once you get past like the first round and really even the second round, it's usually your scouting team and like your assistant GM that are doing the bulk of the research with the picks, and Yzerman kind of just lets them sit back and cook, so to speak. And we kind of can thank Kris Draper mostly for guys like Carter Mater, Amadeus Lam, or Carter Mazer, excuse me, not Mater, not like the tow truck. Carter Mazer, Amadeus Lombardi, even Soderblom too. But yeah, it's definitely well deserved for him. It's a little interesting because I know that Sean Horkoff was the assistant GM, so I don't really know how that whole power dynamic is going to work. Maybe Horkoff is now just assistant to the assistant GM, and he's just going to oversee Grand Rapids. But yeah, we definitely have a good leadership team in place, and Yzerman has really got some reliable and very smart people to lean on.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you made a good point about those later draft picks. That definitely comes down to your scouting and your development team that you have going on there. So good on Kris Draper for finding those late gems, those, hopefully they can turn out into Zetterbergs. Hopefully Datsukes. You never know. Soderblom, you're big. Turn into Tage Thompson 2.0. Please. We would appreciate that a lot. So let's go ahead and talk about Filip Zadina. Filip Zadina was put on waivers. He then clears, and then based on what everything has transpired, I'm sure everyone is well aware that he, with the Red Wings, was never really able to put pucks into the net. And he will not be reporting to Grand Rapids, which then means that his contract is terminated, so that way he can go to a different team on a cheaper deal, which to me is quite a bold move because he left a lot of money on the table. But to be honest with you boys, I completely understand why he did it. He was looking from the outside in for numerous years. I mean, you can say I've always been firm on this, that I do think when he was drafted, he should have been on the Red Wings roster. He should have been playing with Dylan Larkin. He needed to play with talent that was equivalent to his playing style. And we just weren't able to do that for him. And he got stuck in Grand Rapids playing with pretty much no one. And we just left him out to dry for a really long time. What do you guys feel, or what do you guys think and feel about the Filip Zadina situation? I know that we're all pretty sad. We're kind of upset that it didn't really work out, but I want to hear from you boys. What are you guys feeling about it? And, is it smart for Zadina to be leaving $4 million out on the table like he's doing?
It's definitely a disappointing conclusion to that. This news really makes me happy I didn't buy his jersey. Not to attack you, Zach, but yeah, I'm definitely happy I didn't make that purchase. But it's from the perspective of Filip Zadina as like a career move and as a player, this is a very puzzling decision. I mean, he's basically walking away from $4 million guaranteed just to bet on himself. I've never bet $4 million. I'd never bet $4 million on anything. I don't care if I get the best odds available. I'm not betting it. So that's definitely a bold move. At this point in his career, I don't really know what the next best move for him is to have like a long career in the NHL. Like, he could try going to a contender, but he probably doesn't even crack that lineup. I mean, he couldn't even crack the Red Wings lineup, and we don't score, and we were a lottery team this year. So really the next best option is he goes out there to a team that is really down in the dumps, like a San Jose, a Philly, something like that. And he'll get probably some top six or middle six minutes. But I mean, if you're doing that on a rebuilding team, what does that really do for your career long term? Like, you're probably going to be making close to league minimum, if not at league minimum. And he's really not going to be in a position to showcase his talents and kind of prove to people that he was deserving of that 6 overall selection. He's probably not going to be filling anyone's nuts with pucks. Just the way that he's played. I mean, at this point, he's, what is he, 23 or 24? I think he's 23. At this point, he is what he is. I mean, at this point in a player's career, they don't really develop much more. Like, sure, they can get in a better position, but at 23, you kind of are what you are. So I don't really see much success in his career. It kind of hurts to see that because I do wish him the best. I really don't wish him any ill will. I respect that what he's doing is a personal decision, and maybe he's talked with his agent or his family or whatever it may be and decided this is the best plan of action for him. But yeah, it's definitely disappointing. It's a disappointing end to this whole saga, and this really just proves that Ken Holland should not only be retired, but probably also be on trial for war crimes, because what the actual hell? Just another bust in the first round. It's just sad, but, you know, I wish him the best wherever he may go in the future.
I mean, you can't say too much on Ken Holland. Like, when you look at his numbers at the beginning from where the Czech League he came from, he had some great numbers. Like, if I was Ken Holland, I'd probably like, this guy fell to me at 6. Score, let's try something out. But obviously, we see his numbers. I think he had a okay draft year, obviously. Like, his first year in, it wasn't anything spectacular, but what was it? I believe I got him right here. I mean, 9 games, 3 points. Dropped down to Grand Rapids Griffins, 59 games, 35 points, 3 in the 5 games in the playoff. Not bad. Again, like Zach said, he did not have anyone down there that would actually help him out, though. That's the big problem. Like, he got a small stint up with us and then got shot down, and it seemed just to be a reoccurring act. Like, it slowly built up, maybe, for the first year and a half, 2 years. It looked like he was going in the right direction, but after the last 2 years with us now, obviously it just went right back down. Going from 74 games, 24 points, 30 games, 7 points. It's like, I know he was injured most of this year. That's nothing to do with Zadina. That's not his fault. You can't do anything to control your injuries like that. Your body does what your body does. But it is just a sad thing to see a top 6 player like this just getting bought out just because he can't produce what everybody thought he was going to produce. I truly hope that someone in the league tries to take a bet on him still, keeps him in the NHL, keeps him in the US here, trying to keep him playing. I mean, technically you can be in Canada too, but I don't see too many Canadian teams jumping on him right now. Maybe Ottawa, because I don't know what they're doing. But I'm not going to get into the Ottawa conversation. I said I wouldn't. It came out of my mouth. I can't help it. But what I think is probably going to happen with him right now, it's most likely I can see him going back to the Czech League, playing over there, going back home, getting some hours in, getting some minutes. He'll be a full producer over there, I bet. But it's just one of those things. It hurts. I was hoping that something could be done, try to get him back into the groove, get him back up in the lineup, maybe in the bottom 6, obviously, where he was. But Stevie had some different plans for us, and he decided it was time to move on. And the fact that he agreed with the situation, I really hope that him taking this big bet on himself is going to pay off for him in the long run. I have no ill will towards him. I hope all the best towards Zadina.
Yeah, and talking about Filip Zadina's draft year, I mean, and this is the running joke amongst Red Wings fans, right? Is that you could have had Quinn Hughes. He was drafted right after him at number 7 by the Vancouver Canucks. But for those of you that know, Quinn Hughes wasn't even on our radar, to be honest. I mean, the rumor is that if it wasn't for Filip Zadina and some of the other picks that were made ahead of us, I mean, Arizona at number 5 taking Barrett Hayton, and then Montreal Canadiens taking Kotkaniemi. I mean, we were on the board to take Evan Bouchard or Noah Dobson. So Quinn Hughes wasn't even going to be our pick regardless. But either one of those picks would have been way better than Filip Zadina, looking at it in hindsight now, for sure. And I'll agree with you, Derek. I do think that if he doesn't find a home in the NHL with a different team, going home or to a different league overseas can do him very well, because time and time again, we've seen plenty of players do that, right? Where it doesn't work out in the NHL for whatever reason, or they don't get the contract that they're looking for. They go home, put up the points, and then finally they can make the comeback. Matt, I'll kind of agree with you on what you said, that like he's kind of the player that he's going to be. Maybe nothing else will change, but being so young too. I mean, we see players kind of boom once they get into that 25, 26, 27 year age. So maybe if he just goes to a different team and just has a coach that knows exactly what he is and exactly what he can bring and puts him in the best position possible to succeed, then that's a recipe for success for Zadina. I mean, he's just, whatever team he goes to has to know what they're getting themselves into. Someone who's good two-way, but just gets scared as soon as he gets the puck in front of the net and tries to shoot it. I mean, either that's a whiff or he's shooting it right in the tummy of the goalie. So best of luck to him. Like Matt said, no hard feelings whatsoever. I mean, it's all Ken Holland's fault. We'll just leave it at that because, and Tyler Wright, I mean, he did Tyler Wright, and that's a different story. I mean, I don't want to get too involved into that, but that goes to show you how poorly that the organization was ran with Ken Holland, Tyler Wright, I mean, Dennis Chalowski, Evgeny Svechnikov, Filip Zadina, even Michael Rasmussen, people were nervous about it, and then he finally started turning it around. And I give praise to Derek Lalonde. I think Derek Lalonde helped him out, but at the end of the day, it does fall on the player too as well. So Filip Zadina definitely should probably get a new personal trainer and probably a mental coach to help him out with putting pucks in the net. So let's go ahead and move on to the development camp with the 3-on-3 tournament that the Red Wings had. I believe that was last week. We are recording Sunday morning. It's 10:47 in the morning. Thanks, boys, for waking up very early to do this. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I believe that there were 4 separate teams. Each person got to draft their players based on what they wanted, how they wanted to do it. I can't remember exactly which team ended up winning, but let's go ahead and talk about the standouts. I'm not sure if you guys ended up getting to watch the replays of the whole entire tournament, but I got to watch it while it was live. The standouts that I noticed: Palika, Lombardi, Dylan James, Trey Augustine, Danielson, Casper, Brennan Ali, Doucette looked really good. Bouillon looked pretty good. Mazer out there looked good. And Red Savage was looking pretty freaking good out there too. The biggest standout for me, to be honest with you guys, was Dylan James. I mean, I believe that he ended up recording a hat trick in one of the games. Trey Augustine actually looked phenomenal out there. Palika had some really nice edges out there. I don't think he got a goal in, but his shot too was booming out there. Nate Danielson looks actually way faster than what I thought he did. He actually looked really good out there. I guess I'll just ask you boys, do you guys have any personal favorites that you noticed from the development camp?
Well, I can't lie, buddy. You literally named off everybody that I had on my notes right here. Thank you very much. I literally have Dylan James up top, Lombardi, ASAP, Carter Mazer, Trey Augustine. Then I also, what he didn't say, I think he might have actually, but the defenseman, Shai Bouillon. Someone help me? I have no idea how to say that last name.
That's close enough.
Bouillon, yeah. Hey. For a defenseman out there that I didn't know anything about, his name just kept getting said over and over on the ice. He showed great skill and has great offensive instincts for a defenseman. For someone I didn't know anything about, watching him play was actually something to be bewildered at, because I'm like, okay, some random guy that was in our system coming up, prospect, of course. No one really knows too much about him yet. He's doing exactly what he needs to do up there. And I can tell you right now, Stevie was taking notice of him pretty intensely. Like, he might not be our next right-handed first line D, but this is someone that coming up the ranks that we could actually use. And then we had Trey Augustine out there and Kosa. Oh, those are our goalies right now in our system, guys. Just remember that. Go watch that development camp videos. Watch those 2 goalies out there. They are sliding back and forth, covering the entire net, able to make the right saves. I think Augustine had a beautiful 2-on-0 stopping play from end to end. I was like, that's what I want to see from a guy we got for our first round goalie, not first round goalie, but our first pick as a goalie for the league. I'm like, that's exactly what I was hoping for at 9.4 that he ended the season with last year. I think he's got to do some good movements for us too, especially keeping Kosa on his toes a little bit, because he just noticed that he has a little bit of competition now. Yeah. And then, of course, we had Carter Mazer, Marco Casper out there. And I would say I think my best one I saw, besides Red Savage, just because his name kept popping up and I just love that name, was Lombardi. That kid is all over the ice right now. He was putting pucks in the net. He was making plays. I was pretty
I was pretty happy watching him play. I'm like, okay, this is another talent that we have coming up in the systems that no one really knew about. I think it's going to be one of our, what it was, he like a third or fourth round pick. He's doing great. He's doing really great right now. And I'm like, if he, you know, his size is that factor that plays in a little bit to what a lot of people think. But at the same time, he's doing the job. He's getting it done. He looks great out there. And then we had Dylan James that was just out of nowhere after having a crappy season in the what was it, in college he played this year, I believe.
Yeah.
In the UNCC. I believe he didn't have a great year at all. But I think it was just a down year for him. It was that little freshman slump that wasn't really a freshman slump yet. Honestly, this development camp was a great thing to see because it just showed us everything that we need on our lines right now is going to be there in 2 to 3 years. I was pretty happy watching what I got to watch. And I missed maybe the last 30 minutes, so didn't get to watch it all, but still. Whew! We got some players coming up, boys. It's a good sign for us.
Yeah, Dylan James, he was interviewed after that, and they were asking him about that, and he's like, he just had a fourth line role, just learning the ropes, just kind of being out there and soaking everything in. So to see what he did at the tournament, it was great to see. It did look like that he was out there, like, trying to outperform everyone else, and that was the case for a lot of these prospects for sure. Matt, what did you think about the tournament?
Well, I think actually the biggest standout for me wasn't any of the recent picks, but I think it was Kosa. I mean, I remember Kosa last year during this tournament, he was kind of just letting everything in and looked very shaky, and that was, also, as we know, the year before he got sent down to the ECHL, but this year, I think just having a year in the East Coast League and putting up the numbers he did and just getting the confidence from that big playoff run, I think he plays now with a lot more confidence, a lot more poise. He's just more, he's more like mentally focused in net, and he doesn't really let anything go by him. He has to make people work for it if they want to score on him. And I remember that little highlight of, I think it was Casper doing like a best of 3 against him. And I think like Costa stopped like the first 2, and then Casper did some insane move and scored one by him. I mean, I was literally like the gif of Squidward yelling, "Future! Future!" Like, that's the future right there. That's our future 2 seed and our future number 1 goalie. So that was awesome to see. Like you guys, I think Augustine was another really big standout from this tournament. I think the concerns about him being a little undersized at whatever it is, 6 foot or 6'1", he plays really, really well. He's always in the right position. Him being undersized really isn't the worst thing. Like, UC Saros is undersized. He's like 5'11" or 6 foot, and he was a Vezina nominee a few years ago. So I'm not saying that he's going to turn into UC Saros, but that would definitely be great. And I think from what we've seen, he's going to have a pretty big year at Michigan State, which I think they're going to be a pretty good team, Michigan State. They're going to really have a good bounce back year. We've got him over there and Red Savage, and I think there was another top prospect in this draft that is going there that I can't think of right now, but yeah, he should have a big year in college. I think maybe overall, the best prospect I saw was Mazur. I really feel like with all the free agent additions, there's going to be some, you could say, roadblocks for a rookie making it out of camp. It's definitely going to be a lot tougher. I really only see one rookie making it out of camp, but Mazur's going to make it interesting. He really is. I think once we share our lineups, I'm not going to give anything away, but the only rookie I have in mind was Casper. I really think Mazur can make it interesting. I think he could knock someone out of the 4th line and really just play right away. But we'll definitely see about that. I kind of expect him to be back and forth from the AHL to the NHL, if anything. But yeah, he was really impressive. And the last one that I noticed was Sandine Pelican, man. That dude flies out there. And before this draft, one of his comparables was Erik Karlsson. I read that, and I was just like, that is absolutely insane. Why would you compare someone to one of the best defensemen ever to play in the league? Then I watched him play, and I was like, oh, okay, it actually makes sense. Except, unlike Karlsson, Sandine Pelican can also play a little bit of defense. So how about we have a little bit of both, and that'll be one hell of a player. So I would not be shocked in the slightest. I know it takes defensemen not named Mo Seider a while to develop, but if he has a big year in the SHL next year, he might make it interesting and make the team out of camp not this year, but 2 years from now. So, yeah, I really was impressed with his game. I think overall, we have a really exciting group of prospects, and the top two new guys that we added, Danielson and Sandy Pellica, they look like they're going to be big parts of the future in years to come.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I don't have anything else on that. So why don't we just go ahead and jump right into our top 10 prospect pool? And what we'll do is, like I said, this is a fan vote prospect pool that we did on our YouTube community page. I'll just go ahead and share my screen real quick. Yeah. So this was the community tab that we did. Welcome to our top 10 Detroit Red Wings prospects community pool. You all selected Cross Hannes as the 10th best Red Wings prospect in the pool. So the rule was, and there was only one rule, that you could not select a player that had played more than 30 games in the NHL. So that excluded a couple players. But looking at this, Simon Edvinsson, number 1, Marco Kasper, number 2. That first vote was very close. Simon Edvinsson won by a hair, basically. Then you got Kosa, number 3, Carter Mazer, 4, Soderblom, Willander, Lombardi, Johansson, Kuchelnikov, which I'm very surprised he made it into this top 10. Not because I don't think that he belongs in there, but at the fact that people in Red Wings fandom actually know who he is because he's playing over in Russia. So you don't really get to see too much out of him unless you're finding a stream to be able to watch him. And then Cross Hannes at number 10, like I said. Based on this list, boys, are there any changes that you would have made? Is there anyone that you would have moved? Anyone you would have removed? Let me hear from you guys. We'll start with Matt. You can go first.
Oh man. It's really hard to say that this list is wrong. It's really not far off. I think the only thing I would change is I would maybe put Mazer above Kosa and maybe even Soderblom above Kosa. Maybe I put Soderblom number 3 because he actually does have NHL experience. So I think that would probably give him the edge over some of these guys, but yeah, Simon Edvinsson definitely makes sense. I mean, we saw when he had his little 9-game stint to end the year that he didn't look out of place at all. He looked like he's been playing for 5 years in the league in like top 4 deep hitting minutes. So yeah, that is definitely well deserved for Edvinsson. Kasper, I mean, I feel like he's going to make the team out of camp, and I really don't think it's going to be much of a struggle for him. I think he's ready now, I think, but I guess that is all up to Yzerman and Lalonde to make that decision. But yeah, the rest of the list looks fine. I kind of agree with Hannes being there at number 10. It's just kind of tough to really gauge what he is at this point because he did spend a lot of the year injured down in AHL. But yeah, maybe I'd put like someone like Buyum above him just because we've seen more of him. He's been healthier, but of course that's not Hannes' fault that he got injured. So, but yeah, the list looks fine. I think if we were to do this with like Danielson and ASP, gosh, I don't know. I don't even know why I said that because I actually don't know where I would put them. they definitely probably be in the top 5, I would imagine. I would probably have to put them somewhere in the top 5. They're really good players. I'm very excited about both of them. Maybe I'd put ASP above Danielson. I really, really like ASP, but that's not to say that I don't love Danielson either. I think both of them are going to be absolute studs at the NHL level. But yeah, it looks good to me.
All right, Derek, what do you think about the list?
I mean, the top 4, perfect. I'm not changing anything with those 4 guys right there. But once it gets past the 5 and down is where I can see some movement right now, especially after watching the development camp and watching them all actually play out there. So Lombardi, for me, just because I have a little man crush on the kid right now, apparently, which is weird to say out loud. But I'm moving him up to probably number 5 right now. 5 or 6 for me, just because of what he was doing out on the ice, all his skill he was showing with us. I know Soderblom is a massive man that I want on the ice for us as soon as possible, too. But with his Lombardi's skill and compete that he's been producing, I think I would push him up a little bit. And then probably around 10, like Matt was saying, Cross Hannes, not his fault he was injured all year. Can't blame the guy for anything on that end. But maybe I'd probably maybe a DuCont in there, or since we watched the development camp and I had already talked about him and how well he did in his D, Booyah might be the next best one to pop in there between 9 and 10. I like those places for them. And then, I mean, the rest of it, I can't argue. I voted for all those guys in those spots, so you really don't hear much complaints from me because, yes, we also vote on our community pools too. It's, got to give ourselves votes. But if we want to jump to the Danielson and ASP side of things, Danielson, good movement on the ice out there. He knows what he's doing. He's a big boy and he has to compete to do everything. A good hockey IQ as well does ASP. So it's really hard where I want to put him just because I haven't been able to watch them enough lately besides the development camp. But I'll toss at least ASP. He would probably be the one who sneaks in at 10 for me in that case if we're going to switch it up a little bit. Danielson, maybe at 11 right now. Only because I don't know enough about his game. I want to see what his ceiling's going to be. I want to know if his floor is actually where it's at. We'll have to see a little bit more in the future, and I say by next year I'll have a better answer for everybody. But that's where I would place all of them in this league. So for the most part, I think everybody was on point with what our prospects are doing right now. So good job, everybody voting. Obviously, Danielson and ASP weren't in there, so we can't really conclude that. But I think it was a good round all around for us. And I think if this is what our team's going to look like in the future, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I think the top three is very spot on. From there, it's just a crapshoot based on whoever is voting and thinks, what's really the most important thing for this organization moving forward. Clearly, you all know what's going on with the Red Wings right now. We need help in every direction possible. Center, left wing, right wing, left defense, right defense. It doesn't matter. Goaltending even. So I think that top three, you got your defenseman, you got your center, and you got your goalie of the future. Perfect. A change that I would make, this is no offense to Carter Mazur. I probably would put Willander above Carter Mazur. I think him being able to play right-handed D definitely bumps him up a little bit more. I would put him at 4, put Mazur at 5. Soderblom, I would probably move even as far down as like under Johansson. No offense to Elmer Soderblom, and I know that he's played a couple games in the NHL, but I do think still that he is a project pick. I know fans are really high on him, but that's frame of his and like just his style of play, we all saw him got to play, right? So he just needs a couple more things that he needs to work on. So it's no offense to him. Cross Hannes, yeah, everyone's touched on him so far, so I'll touch on him too. Pretty sure he was almost half a point per game player in the AHL, playing in I think it was 30 something games. So that's great production out of someone for their first time playing in the AHL. So kudos to him for doing that. So hopefully he can go up a little bit more this upcoming season and stays healthy. If I were to insert ASP or Nate Danielson, I probably would put ASP at this point at the number 4 spot. I really would, because that right-handed shooting position is a definitive need that we need. I mean, look at the roster right now. We just signed Justin Hall to 3 years, $3 million, whatever the contract was. So that's definitely a player that we need out there as quickly as possible. Nate Danielson, another positional need at center. I would put him ahead of maybe Lombardi. Maybe that's a stretch. I don't know. But you got to take it based on where he was selected at. No offense to Lombardi. I know that he was a 4th round pick or wherever he was selected, but he's shown us great things. So I do think that he can bring a lot to this club. But in terms of what he can be, what's his ceiling, maybe he can be a 2C. I don't know. A really good 3C at that. But I do think if you had to choose one or the other, I think Nate Danielson would probably make the jump before Lombardi did. So that's my reasoning behind that. And I was really surprised that Albert Johansson was the 8th best prospect based on the fan votes. I figured a lot of people would have him a lot higher. Maybe it's because a lot of people just didn't see a lot of production coming out of him. But I just know that he plays a little more of a defensive game, and you can't have too many of those. We need a lot of those. So, and I'm going to throw one out there. I think Trey Augustine could definitely make this list. I would put him at number 10, to be honest with you guys, to give Costa that little competition like we mentioned before. Derek mentioned his stats. His stats looked really good. during the development camp, he looked really good. Going and playing at MSU, I'm not sure exactly what their goaltending situation is. Maybe he's going to split time. Maybe he's the full-time starter as a freshman. Who knows? But I definitely would put him in the top 10 only because we need more than just one goaltender of the future for sure. So that's my take on it. But I do think in the future, maybe it's in a couple weeks, maybe it's right closer to, the Traverse City camp that they do every year. Maybe we'll do another poll and we'll make it the top 15 prospect pool just to make it more wide open. And that way you, the fans, can vote once again on who the best prospects are in the Red Wing system now that we have 11 new prospects that are just added in there with 2 really highly touted players in the first round. And then you got Trey Augustine in there as well. And, and for the last vote on the poll, it was between Cross Hannes, Alex Dossett, Donovan Sabrango, Emil Vero, and Shai Buyam. Cross Hannes came in at 52%. Dossett was the next best up. Would you guys imagine that Dossett makes it into the top 15 if we did do a top 15 poll?
That's a push, I would say, but with the numbers that he has and his skill level, I could easily possibly see him making that right now, 14 or 15 for us. I could definitely see it, but there are some people in the system that I might say could have more potential than him, just depending on what's going to happen here the next month, what happened the last month, and it's just going to have to see how the ball rolls with all these guys, honestly.
Yeah. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, he'd make top 15, but he'd probably be 15. I mean, if we're including like the guys we just drafted this year, I kind of feel like the majority of the rest of that list would include them. But he may not be number 1 in terms of skill in our prospect pool, but who's number 1 in my heart? Brady Cleveland, baby. That dude trucks people out there. I love that guy. He's horrible at hockey, but I love watching that guy just absolutely murder people on the ice. That's a beautiful thing to see. But yeah, I don't even know why I brought that up. But yeah, I guess Doucette would probably make it. He's kind of a weird one. I mean, like he is considered a prospect, but he's probably, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 years older than all these guys on here. He's an overager in the queue. So I really don't see much more than him just playing minutes in Grand Rapids. But yeah, he's definitely got some skill. He'd be on here for sure.
Yeah, you can't ignore Brady Cleveland, to be honest. I mean, those pin minutes, 106 with the US NTDP team, U18 team, that is just insane. You can't ignore that at all. So yeah, he is definitely a shit disturber out there, and you can't have too many of those either. That's one of the reasons, or I think Derek and I talked about it. You can't have too many of those. There's a reason why Yzerman went out and signed some of the players they did in free agency, because we need to be more rough and rugged out there, especially going up against the Sens. We don't want to talk about them at all. So that's enough about that. Why don't we go ahead and go on to our main event, which is to show you guys each of our roster predictions for opening night. Derek, yours will go first, and you can have the chance to. Your message when it came through, it was really weird, my dude. So I had to make.
I was like, I don't know how to fix this, so I'm just gonna send it as is. Hopefully, Zach understands it.
I slightly did. I think I might have made a couple of changes for you. I'm not sure, so you can correct me if I'm wrong once we show it. But yeah, then you can kind of go into the whole percentages and everything that you put in there too. I was like, what is all of this? I don't understand. What is Derek doing? All right, there we go. All right, Derek, go ahead and take it away. This is your opening night roster, bud. Let's hear it.
Beautiful. I wish I could see it like you do right now. I'm still waiting for it to load. I'm not yet.
Just look at your phone.
Alrighty. Oh, look at that. Alrighty. Let's see if Zach was more on point with what I was going with. So looking pretty good. I don't like that you didn't have my nicknames in there, but you can only do so much.
I can't change names. I'm sorry. They go by birth names in this setup here.
Lame. I'm about to say you did it perfectly. So with the top 2 lines up in the forwards, those are staying exactly how I had them. Like I believe those are going to be our top 2 lines right there
for the next coming year, the only changes I made are coming in the bottom two right now. And mostly in the fourth line, but there's one line person that I think is going to make a little appearances. So the way I broke it down like this in percentages is because I'm putting the percentage that they might be able to play up in the NHL this year. And that's how much I think they're possibly going to do. So my first one I have is for that third left wing position where we have Fabry up there. I can see Mr. Carter Mazer making an appearance once in a while. I have him at about a 30% retention going up there, saying so he plays about 30% of the time, while Fabry plays the other 70%, depending on how well he can actually produce this year. I got Casper probably at 15 to 30% in that fourth center position, depending on, again, how Rasmussen does. And with Rasmussen, I feel like he's going to be the one who gets pulled in and out possibly the most this year, just because our center depth at that position, we just have so many of them. We have Casper, we have Lombardi, we have Veleno, and then we got Soderblom on the back burner. So I think he might make an appearance this year. Not as much as the rest of the guys, I believe. Maybe like 5 to 10% of the games he might jump in, maybe like 5-10 games. I say it's a good start for him, though. Get some speed moving, get him in the little action. And I would say that would be a good little turnaround. As long as we get all these guys moving up through the system, getting some time playing with the real big boys, not just in the AHL league, I think they will all do fantastic. Then let's just jump down to our Ds right now. We got Wallman, Sider, Ghost Bear, J Hall, Mata, and our sack of potatoes. Ben Schrott, if anyone didn't know who that was. And for the most part, that's probably how that's going to go for us this year. We have a few people in the back burner. We have Edmondson, of course, and we got Wally World down there. So I feel like both those guys, one big right-handed defenseman, one's a left. So I can see them both switching in and out, especially for our sack of potatoes. Trying to get some people up there with some better shots, some better movement. I feel like that's the only thing I would change up there. I think our D is going to be pretty good, no matter, well, not pretty good. It's going to be pretty much set for what it is this year. We don't have a lot of people to pull up. Especially, well, we do have a lot of lefties, obviously, but none that are completely ready to get put into the NHL, like I would say Edmondson or Wally World is. And then let's jump over to our goalies. We got Husso starting with Mr. James Reimer coming back on the back burner for him. Hey, I'm not upset with that little $1.5 million for 1 year for Reimer. That's not a bad deal. He's an old boy, but he has all the experience that all these younger goalies underneath him, say like Kosa, Augustine. I say they need to follow in his footsteps a little bit. I know he's played for San Jose. You can't do anything about the team that you're on. You get put on. It's San Jose. Haven't been a great team in many years. It is what it is. Reimer still did well. Coming up to, I believe, last year was his first year that he dropped under a 0.9% save percentage too. So putting him on the Red Wings, still a better look for us goalie-wise. And then underneath that, we're probably going to have a few other guys jumping in there. What Florida's little our little buyout from Florida for Leon? Is that how he's Leon? We're going with it. And we got Kosa there on back burner too. So I believe those two are going to make a nice switch in and out for the backup. And when Husso is tired, needs some time off because we cannot play him like we did last year. Otherwise, we're going to have the same outcome, a stressed out, tired goalie. So I think the Reimer is a good choice for the back burner. And then we're going to be moving up Kosa, I feel like, a lot more than Leon, even though he was the one who pretty much got Florida to the Stanley Cup Finals. Even though he only played a couple games in the actual playoffs. But he was the one in the preseason that made some great saves, made some great plays. And I think he was probably the main key for a little bit there for Florida to make it into the playoffs. So that's my entire breakdown of who. Obviously, we see right here who's probably going to start. But those guys on back burners, look out for them because I feel like that bottom 2, 3, or bottom 3 and 4, there's going to be quite a bit of movement going back and forth this year just to get players they need up and running. So top 2 lines for everybody. That's what we got this year. Our goalies, that's what we got. We could see a lot of changes, though, coming forward for the other guys.
Yeah, I agree. I think this roster could go any way possible. But it's funny, Derek, for those of you that don't understand, Derek, in his text message to me when I made these rosters, he literally had sack of and then the emoji potato for Ben Sherrod. So, and then for Ghost Bear, he literally did the emoji of a ghost and a bear. So I love it, Derek. I love the enthusiasm in the messages, buddy. It definitely had me dying laughing. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with this roster. I think it's pretty good. The only thing that I'm surprised about is that you did put Michael Rasmussen as the 4 seat. Based on last year, what we saw, and we don't have to go deep dive into everyone's rosters. I just think he's more suited for a winger. So that's my personal take on it. Leslie, do you want to say anything really quickly about the roster, I guess, that Derek put together?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because looking at his roster, comparing it to mine, our defense lineup is pretty much the exact same. I actually think it's literally the exact same. So that's definitely interesting. I do like a lot of this. Like you said, Zach, I really don't want Rasmussen to ever play center again. He is not a center in the NHL. I know he was drafted to be one, but he just straight up is not. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's more suited to the wing. Actually, one thing, now that I'm looking at this, that does stand out to me is there's no Joe Veleno. What happened to Joe Veleno? Did we just kick him to the curb?
I think Derek just kind of forgot.
I mean, I know, like, in cap friendly, you have to re-sign him to put him in the roster, so maybe you just forgot to do that, which that's fine. I sometimes forget that too, but I think Veleno was your 4C. Other than that, I like everything on here. I think this is a pretty reasonable roster. It's probably pretty close to what we'll see on day one.
Crap. All right, Matt, go ahead and break down your roster.
So I don't even. Okay, now I can see it. So that's fantastic. Yeah. So here is my roster. The top line is probably not. I think this is actually the top line at the end of the season. So I kind of just took that and just rolled with it again because I kind of feel like who else on this roster are you going to put in a top line spot with Larkin and Raymond other than Daddy P? We all love Daddy P on this podcast. He is a ripe old, what is he now, like 34? But, you know, he's still producing. I think he had 23 or 24 goals this year. So he still scores goals. Really good guy to put on the top line with you for that goal scoring support. Then I have, maybe this is a little bit of a surprise for people, but I have Ras on the second line. I really feel like when Ras gets healthy to start the season, he's going to take a big step forward. I think you saw last year that he was really kind of blossoming into the player that he should be, and I think he's going to be a good second line winger. Then I kind of was wondering whether I wanted to do Comfer or Cop there in the second C. I put Comfer up there just because I think his game might be a little bit more well-rounded than Cop, but I kind of imagine them to flip-flop throughout the season in terms of who's the 2C and who's the 3C. And then I have Daniel Sprong here. He was last year in the NHL one of the best 5-on-5 goal scorers. He had around 20 goals. I think it was just over 20 goals. So he's going to be a good candidate there for the second line. And then down on my third line, I do have Marco Kasper. I think he's going to make the team. It's definitely not going to be easy for him, but I don't really want it to be because he needs to earn that spot rather than just have it given to him. Like, if you have prospects just coming up and they're being gifted roster spots, that's how you get the Sveshnikovs, the Cholowskis of the world. So I think Kasper's going to knock down the door. He's going to make the team, and he won't play center right away. He'll be just like when Larkin started, and he was starting on the wing, and he's kind of just going to learn the center game from Andrew Kopp. And I know we're not doing a couple years in the future, but I think after this next year, I think he will be your 3C, maybe even your 2C, but that's kind of jumping ahead too much. And then I have Kubalik down here on the third line. He scores goals sometimes. He's very inconsistent, and he doesn't really do anything other than that. So, yeah, that's a perfect middle six winger right there. Put him right on the third line. Maybe he could play on the second line. I don't really know. That's up to our beautiful bald bastard Derek Lalonde to figure out. And then down on the fourth line, this was the only, like, now that I'm looking at this roster in front of me, the only thing I don't really like is I put Bergman down here in the fourth line. I really feel like he probably should play a little bit higher in the lineup. I think when he came onto the team, and I know he didn't have a full season, and kind of at the end he hit like a rookie wall. I feel like he's going to be a really, really effective middle six, maybe even top six winger. I really see this guy scoring 50 to 60 points every year in his prime. I think he's going to be a great middle six winger. But for now, since he's still a little bit inexperienced, I'll put him on the fourth line, give him some sheltered minutes, and if he can just keep up the production he had this past year and really keep impressing, he could play up the lineup. And I got everyone's favorite Russian brawler, Klim Kostin, down here. He's not really like your average fourth liner. He can also score some goals. I mean, he's not really gonna impress anybody. Like he'll probably get you like maybe like one game winning or game tying goal. But yeah, he's mostly just down there for muscle, mostly just down there so we don't get punked by the Ottawas of the world. And then I have Christian Fischer, Robbie Fabry. They're my extra forwards. They'll probably play every other game, get in the lineup every so often. And then my defensive team is pretty much the exact same as Derek's. So don't feel like I need to really jump into that too much. I almost put a pairing of Sherratt and Hall together on the third line, and then I almost puked in my mouth when I saw that, because those two together, that might be pound for pound the worst defensive pairing in the entire league. I'm not even kidding. I've got my own thoughts on Hall. I feel like now that he's in Detroit and he's gonna play some sheltered minutes, and he's not in the pressure cooker that is Toronto, I feel like he will at least be serviceable. He's not going to be good. I don't expect him to be good. I really more expect him to be terrible. But if he's serviceable, that's a win. So yeah, he's on the second pairing. And I've got Ville Husso. That's a no-brainer. He's your starter. I have Alex Lyon there as his backup. For personal reasons, I really am not happy that James Reimer is on this team. I'm not really going to go into that because I feel like most people listening know what I'm getting at there. But yeah, I didn't want to put him in the lineup. But also at this point in his career, he could be a good starter in the AHL. So there's nothing wrong with that. And that pretty much does it for my lineup. I think maybe at some point you'll see Edvinsson get in the lineup. I don't really know who he's going to knock out to get in there. Maybe we flip Gostisbehere at the deadline, and then Edvinsson comes in and he takes the job from there. But for now, I'm working with what I got, and this is my roster. And I think it looks pretty good. What do you guys think?
I think for me,
I mean, I can't argue at all. Oh, go Zach. Go.
Sorry. I think for me, I was pretty shocked that you had Robbie Fabry being a healthy scratch. I mean, I think it was you who actually said it in one episode that we did, that this is going to be the first season going into a season where he's going to be fully healthy. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's in a middle six role where he's either on the third or the second line. I mean, he's a coach's player, so that's the only thing that I would change, I guess, if you want to call it that. No offense to Marco Kasper, but yeah, everything has to go right for him, and he's going to show that he's got some grit on his teeth, and we all know that he definitely does. So other than that, I mean, poor Christian Fischer, because he's out of my lineup too. Unfortunately, he's the extra man as well.
Yeah,
and
I think we all
kind of like how you said, I almost put Sherratt and Justin Hall together. I was like, oh, but I feel bad for Justin Hall because, like you said, he was the whipping boy in Toronto, and he was just put in some pretty bad situations playing 20 plus minutes a night. So if you can get him in the second role or even in the third role, I think he could be pretty good. He was a plus 15 and plus minus. I know that plus minus isn't the greatest, but for defensemen, it means a lot more than it does for forwards. Being a plus 15 and 39 penalty minutes, 18 points in 80 games. I mean, that's really not the worst. So I want nothing more for this guy to basically give the bird to Toronto and be like, screw you guys. I'm doing good in Detroit. So hopefully it does him some good.
Going back to Christian Fischer, I kind of feel like when he was signed, everybody kind of figured that he would be your extra forward. I don't necessarily think he'll never play and he'll only be in the AHL. I think he'll get in every now and then. Maybe it's between him and, I don't know, Costin. Just however you want to deploy your personnel. Maybe you play a team that matches up better against a Christian Fischer or a Klim Kostin. I know that Fischer is a good penalty killer, so I do think he'll be on the PK. So he'll get some use. But yeah, going back to Hall, like I know I missed like the free agency episode and everything, but I kind of feel like Hall is better than people are kind of making him out to be. I also feel like the way that Toronto had their defensive core, they didn't have any good defensemen other than Morgan Riley pretty much ever. So they kind of relied more on Hall and put him in a position where he had to play bigger than what he actually is, so to speak. So I don't know. The deal sucks. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't suck, but for the 3 years we have him, hopefully he'll just be serviceable and we can play him to his strengths. So that's my view on Justin Hall.
Welcome back, Derek. Give us your thoughts on this opening night roster setup, buddy.
Well, I'm not going to change up the D, Matt, because obviously we picked the same goddamn stuff. So that's beautiful. But obviously with up top, too, we see Casper and Fabry switching out. That's how I saw it coming up, too. I did have Fabry starting. And Casper, I feel like we all said, has to make sure that he has the capabilities, he has the drive, he actually has the competition that he needs to actually drive his force to be that position, which I think we all think he has in him. And I'd love to see him up there at least 30 to 40% of the year playing. And if Fabry just gets knocked down to the fourth line, I'm okay with that too. Because I don't see him getting taken out of the entire lineup for the year. And then you got, the only other one I would say is, like you said, Matt, you got Burgers down there on the fourth line. Maybe I could see him still on the third line, just had an off year last year, but I can still see him being up on the third line and then slowly getting those minutes in. But other than that, I do like the lineup. I could definitely see it going this way. Veleno, we'll see if we sign him, but I'm pretty sure we'll get him something, and he'll probably be either our fourth or, next up the bat, fifth line center at that point for us. So all in all, I like it. Goalies, I like too, just because I have no idea what our two that we just signed in free agency are going to do for us this year. So back and forth swap, I like those guys there. So yeah, I don't have too many complaints on this one. So I think we would be good to go if we had this for the year too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like I said, I don't think any one of us really had bad roster setups. It's going to be crapshoot once we get there. It's going to be all the Loans decisions, So, all right, last but not least, my roster. Let's get to Sharon here, boys. All right, yeah, so here's my roster. Yeah, the top line, it's always going to be Larkin. It's always going to be Lucas Raymond for me. I would put Daddy P up there, but based on his age, I really don't think that he's the top line talent anymore. 3 years removed, he probably could have been at the age of 31 or however old he is. If he is 34, then I can make a case for that. But you got to try and stay young up there. I do think Michael Rasmussen, based on what we saw last season, right before the trade deadline, he was cooking. And I do think that is a prime candidate to make it onto the top line with those players. He can protect a puck with his big body. He can lay the hits out. And we saw what happened to Lucas Raymond out there last year. Multiple times, other teams were just gaining up on him because he's a little bit smaller. He's like 5'11", 5'10", however big he is. So having Michael Rasmussen out there on that top line to protect the Larkins and the Raymonds out there, it's definitely much needed. My surprise to myself, I kept on going back and forth with Klim Kostin. There's a reason why Steve Yzerman traded for him. He definitely wanted to utilize Klim in the best way possible and put him into a spot where he can succeed based on the other teams that underutilized him, whether that was Edmonton or St. Louis. We know that he's good on the PK, like you guys said. So kind of give him a top 6 role just to kind of see how it goes at the start of the season. JT Compher being the 2C now. I do think that between him and Andrew Kopp, that's going to be interchangeable based on probably like the teams that they play against or injuries, obviously. Daniel Sprong, obviously, is another candidate for someone who played on the fourth line majority of Seattle all of last year, who put up the amount of points that he did. I definitely think that he's deserving the top 6 role for the Red Wings. If he can do 25 goals, that's great. I definitely think that that's someone who can make it up in there. My third line, Andrew Kopp, Robbie Fabry, David Perron. Yeah, I think David Perron, at this point, he still produces, like you guys are saying, but I do think that that's kind of like the third line is your busted / old man line. Robbie Fabry having 3 tears in his leg. Andrew Kopp with the oblique injury last year. Hopefully he's a brand new man this upcoming season, and David Perron just being an old dude. Daddy P, we love you. Please come on our show. We'd love to give you an interview. But yeah, Dominic Kubalik, much like Leslie said, he could score, but he's just very inconsistent at it. I mean, he was very hot at the start of the season, but I think he's the odd man out, honestly. I would not be surprised if someone like Marco Casper did come out here and kind of take this spot, but I'm not going to put Marco Casper in the fourth line at all. If Marco Casper is going to make the roster, he has to be third line or up. That's just how it's going to have to be. I'm not giving him a roster spot, but he's definitely going to have to beat someone out. Joe Veleno is your 4C, and yeah, Yanni Burgers and Joe Veleno had quite the chemistry towards the end of the season last year, so I'm trying to keep those two together. Unfortunately for Veleno, based on the center depth that we have, adding JT Compher and you have Andrew Kopp, Veleno still has a lot of work to do. Being a 200-foot centerman, he's making strides for sure, but that's kind of how it's looking. And then, like I said, poor Christian Fischer, he just seems to be the odd man out. Not saying that he won't ever get a chance to play with the team, but if injuries come along, or you just kind of want to change up some players, if Klim Kostin doesn't end up working out, or if Dominic Kubalik doesn't end up showing up at all, then yeah, you kind of swap those players out with each other. And then my defense, comparing to your guys, Moritz Seider, Jake Wallman, top, right? Like, that's a no-brainer for anyone, whether if you're a Red Wings fan or even outside of the Red Wings fandom. My second line, yeah, I'm putting Shane Gostisbehere on the right side. He said that he actually does really well on the right side, and I'm trying to do Justin Hall a favor by not giving him too much overload in the work field, because based on what I said, Toronto kind of put him in really bad situations to where he had to kind of do it all because they just don't know how to play defense at all. So that's not to say that he can't get bumped up, but I'm keeping Ben Sherratt on the left side. That pairing, we can joke about it all we want, that Ben Sherratt's a dumpster and Justin Hall is a pylon, but if you just give these guys minimal minutes and just tell them just play defense, that's literally all you guys have to do. And then if you get the puck in a shooting opportunity, we've seen Ben Sherratt, if you just give him the minimal minutes, I mean, you could even swap Ben Sherratt and put him on the right side, and then maybe you put Gostisbehere on the left side, kind of like how you guys did. Ben Sherratt actually looked better on the right side, but on my opening night roster, I'm keeping him on the left, and that's your bruising third pairing D right there. I mean, Justin Hall, he can definitely be a shit disturber out there too. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Gustav Lindstrom, outside looking in, a lot of people thought that he was going to go back overseas to wherever he was going to go. So it was a big shock for me that he signed a contract with us. So yeah, he's just the 7th defenseman, unfortunately. And for my goalies, yeah, it's Ville Husso, and I have James Reimer. I understand where Leslie's coming from, that we can have our skepticisms on James Reimer, but I do feel bad for him for playing on a bad San Jose Sharks team, regardless. Even if he did have 100-point getting Erik Karlsson, like, that team was just fire, bad, like just garbage heap. So I do think that even if you did want to swap out those two, yeah, James Reimer could be a great mentor for the AHL goaltenders, whether if that's Kosa or Letherman, who we just signed, I think it was yesterday, to a 1-year deal. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with that situation, because now you got Lyon, Kosa, and Letherman that can be on Grand Rapids. Does Grand Rapids want to have 3 goaltenders? Maybe they do. Who knows? I mean, that's not the worst thing to see, really, and that's great competition amongst those 3. It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes during training camp with the prospects, the notable players that we're seeing right now and just kind of moving forward. Hopefully it all pans out. But tear into me, boys. What do you guys think about this?
Well, to say the least, I really hope Rasmussen comes back with a fiery passion, since both of you had him in the top 2 lines, as I had him in my 4th line down there coming off an injury. That's the only heart attack y'all are giving me with these lineups. I'm like, I know he's a good player. We all know what he can do. I just hope that he actually does it this year. And if he does get in that first or second line, that's pretty much all you could say he has to do, is he has to do what we're expecting of him. And if not, we'll slowly see him just start dropping down the lineup again till he gets to the 4th line and someone comes in and starts swapping time in and out with him.
Yeah,
but I also like your.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say your Ghost Bear. I heard the same thing. He does play left and the right. So I think that's going to be like a key feature on our second line for us too. Like he can just swap back and forth no matter who he's playing with. So I like that little side switch there for him, just because obviously Ben Sherrod can play both sides too, but he's mostly a left wing. Like you said, he produced more on the right wing this year towards the end of the season. Still a sack of potatoes, but I'm happy that he's still at least on the 3rd line. But other than that, I like the lineup. It's not too bad at all. Clauston up there in 2nd. I'll take your word for it. I could see a possibility of the world happening like that, as long as he does what he's supposed to do and produces like he was over in Edmonton, just up a couple lineups. I wouldn't be too upset. I want to see what he can do up there, and it would be pretty interesting to see that the fact that he doesn't have to fight with Draisaitl or McDavid anymore, or Nugent Hopkins for all the goals. So that probably opens up a nice little pathway for him now with us, since we need a goal scorer.
Yeah, and for Michael Rasmussen being on my top line, to be honest, the main reason why I did it, and it sucks to say this, is because of his size. Like I said, you got to protect the Lucas Raymonds. You got to protect Dylan Larkins. Am I expecting him to put up 60 points? No. Would I love that? Hell yeah, I would. Is it doable? Possibly for someone like Michael Rasmussen. I mean, if he gets the power play minutes, especially on the PP2, playing the net front, this is just such a deeper team than it was last year, and it makes me really excited to see exactly what this team can do. Hopefully we get a hot start at the start of the season like we did last year. But Matt, what you think, bud?
I think maybe the only thing I would change is I would swap Kostin with Kubalik. I think Kostin might be a little too far up the lineup. I don't really know. Maybe he's one of those guys that plays up and down the lineup. I don't really know, honestly, that much about Kostin other than he fights people. He punches people in the face, and he sometimes scores. I mean, if he's playing on your 4th line, that's a good 4th line with Foligno and Berggren. Like, that's honestly probably one of the better 4th lines in the league, because you got a combination of skill and toughness down there. I really like that 4th line. And this is nothing against Rasmussen. I know you gave your reasoning for him being up there. This is nothing against your lineup, but my God, I hope this DeBrincat trade goes through, because we need somebody better on that first line. But yeah, to your point, like the point you made, I would be a little concerned with the lack of pushback and toughness with the top line. Like, I mean, DeBrincat is shorter than me, and that's saying something. And Raymond's not a fighter. Larkin is a fighter, but you don't necessarily want him to do that. I remember he broke his hand by punching someone one year, or like sprained it. I don't want that to happen again, because if Larkin is out, we're probably rebuilding for another year. But yeah, I think ultimately I do like the lineup. I think it looks pretty close to this. I think we all had Comfort in the 2C spot.
Yeah.
I was just bored the other night watching NHL highlights, and there was one on Comfort. They did NHL did like a little like highlight video after we signed him. That dude's got a booming shot. Like, his shot is actually really, really good. I'm surprised he didn't have at least 20 goals. Like, that dude has got a wicked shot. So I do like him in the 2C spot. I think when I saw that deal signed, I didn't hate it, but I was very skeptical. But I kind of feel like he can score 50 points every year. I don't think that was an outlier, an aberration last year. I do think he can produce like he was doing. So I think this lineup, I guess I could say it for all three of ours. If I had to say it right now, I still don't think this is a playoff team. I don't know if many people are expecting it to be a playoff team, but who knows? Maybe you get in. They were close last year at some points, so you never really know. I do think the team is improved with everything that Yzerman added, but we'll have to wait and see if this is a playoff team. I'm gonna say no, but I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong.
If you guys had to pick one or two players, who are the one or two players that you need to show up a little bit more this season than they did last season? For me, it's Lucas Raymond, obviously. And I want to see Joe Veleno finally get up there and start showing that he belongs on this team. I think Joe Veleno, I think we've given him plenty of opportunity. And he was selected in the same draft year as Filip Zadina. So he's probably feeling the hot seat too, that he's next to kind of be kicked out of the roster or just the organization. So I think we need to see a little bit more of Veleno. And I hear you on the fourth line too, Matt. But based on what we saw at the end of last season, like I said, with Veleno and Berggren, they looked pretty good and they dominated most of the fourth lines on other teams. So that's why I kind of added Dominic Kubalik, because he can at least score. And if you got someone who can score 25 goals on your fourth line, I'll fucking take that for sure. But yeah, let me hear from you guys if there's one or two players that you definitely want to see kind of either nut up or shut up and show up.
Well, I would say the biggest one for me at this point is the guy we just signed for the biggest deal on the team, our captain himself. He's in a nice, sturdy position now. He is in comfortable 8 years, $8.7 million. I think it's time for Mr. Larkin to be able to put up a point-per-game player like we were all expecting him to be for the last couple of years. Like, I know it's not his fault. Red Wings have been in a struggle. It's been a rebuild. We're trying to get people around him to actually compensate for his skill set and not just be the guy that runs up and down the ice 200 feet every time to play defense and offense. We need him to be more secured in the offensive area. And I think surrounding him with the better players, like obviously we got Lucas Raymond over there, who, like you said, Zach, could put up a few more points for us as well, get a little bit more helpers in there for Larkin, who has the shot on that line. And heck, if not saying it's going to happen, but if we threw a DeBrincat up there, hell, then you got the guy that's going to be passing and feeding the pucks all day long. That's what I want to see from Larkin. I just want him to be our main goal scorer this year. Like, I need him to be at least 30, 40 goals, and I'll be happy. That's what I want to see from him. The biggest person. Then you got, of course, Joe Veleno, like you said. That was the other person I was staring at, right down the center chart right here. He's got probably one more year. He'll probably get a deal with that with us just to show if he can do it still. And it'll be his do or die time. Either that or he's going to put down in the AHL for a small deal at the league minimum, and that might be it for him unless somebody else wants to take him off our hands.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there on Larkin. I actually do not want him at all to be the leading goal scorer, because when he was drafted, he was kind of seen as more of like a playmaking center, and he's kind of had to be the leading goal scorer because nobody else is doing that on the team. I mean, yeah, I'd like to see him get 30 goals. I definitely would. I'm not saying shoot less and pass more, but I would love it if his line mate Raymond overtook him in goals. I would love to see someone else who can actually step up and lead the team in goals. I think for my guys that need to step up, maybe they don't necessarily need to step up, but just kind of continue what they were doing last year. I need Cop to really keep up that production he had at the last half of this year. And I think he can. I think he'll bounce back pretty well. I think just a slow start was him, I don't know, like a combination of a new team plus the surgery he got. So I think he will step up a little bit. And once Rasmussen gets healthy, I'd like him to stay healthy and just keep doing what he's been doing. I don't really think they necessarily need to step up. Maybe they do a little bit, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. but I would like to see them continue that positive momentum they had at the end of the year. And God, I want someone to just score goals. That's what I want. This was the worst goal scoring, one of the worst goal scoring teams in the entire league. They were like, I don't even know, 28 or 29 in the league last year. That can't happen again. It just can't. I don't know where those goals are going to come from. I hope it's Raymond. I hope Sprong is going to be another 20 goal scorer. I hope Perron can keep scoring goals like he did this year. Hell, I hope Rasmussen can score some goals. I just need goals, man. I just want some fucking goals. That's all I want. Obviously, I want a lot more than that, but the number one thing I want is just score, 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 score. How many games did we watch where the Wings were down 2-1? They had so many shots on goal, and they just cannot finish one. We need that. We absolutely need that. If we had a pure goal scorer last year, we win a couple more OT games, we tie up some games late, take an OT, maybe a shootout, we see how that goes. All of a sudden, we're talking about a different team here. So that's the number one thing that I want is goals, 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 more goals. But yeah, I want more toughness. I want more goals. And I think this is a team that will be improved if we can have both those things.
All right. That's it. That was our rosters. If you guys would be so kind, why don't you guys go in the comment section and let us know who had the best opening night roster, or who do you think is the closest to what it'll actually look like? We'd love to hear your thoughts. But as always, make sure that you're hitting the thumbs up button. It really does make the frown turn upside down. It really does. But as always, if you're not subscribed, make sure that you are subscribing. If you're new, if you're returning, we definitely appreciate you guys for sticking around, catching the tail end of this episode. And we'll go ahead and close it off with our final thoughts. Derek, take it away, bud.
Oh, Red Wings, please be good next season. I don't need you to be a Stanley Cup contender. If you snug into the playoffs like Florida did somehow, I'd be happy. Like, I understand the draft thing now. I'm not expecting us to get first, second, third, fourth, or fifth anymore. That's out the window.
Yeah.
The rebuild is on the way. It's almost there. Give us like 2-3 more years, everybody. You're going to see a whole new, different kind of Red Wings team out there that's going to be blowing the doors off of every team they play, hopefully. So let's just keep the momentum going. Let's get some goals in the neck. Let's try to not talk about Ottawa anymore until something happens, because, oh my God, I am going to have an aneurysm about what some of them say sometimes. But go Red Wings. Hopefully this is going to be a good lineup for us. Hopefully one of us is correct, and hopefully it works out for us.
Matthew, final thoughts, bud.
My final thoughts are, let's go Red Wings. My uncle from New York is visiting us this weekend, so I imagine we're going to talk a lot about the Islanders and whatever the hell they're doing over there on the island. Lou Lamoriello needed to retire 5 years ago. That dude is a crusty old vegetable, and I hate his guts. And the Islanders are probably going to be as bad as the Red Wings were in 1920 in a few years. I'm not even kidding. That team is going to be so mid, it's not even funny. But I know you agree with me. You're happy that I'm saying that, Zach. They will struggle to make playoffs this year. They'll probably miss it. And after that, Lou will either retire or die. He'll probably die before he retires. And then the next GM will take over, and it'll be a lot like Yzerman when he took over from Holland, and he's like, what the hell even are these contracts? What are you doing here? So, yeah, those are my thoughts. We'll see if my uncle agrees with that. He, for some reason, thinks that Lou's doing a good job. I don't know where that's coming from. Anyone with a brain can tell you he's not. He's probably the 32nd best GM in the league. I don't know who's worse than him. I really genuinely don't. He might have dementia, honestly. I swear to God, he might have dementia. We need to get him checked out at a doctor. But, yeah, let's go Red Wings. I don't have much else. Max Verstappen won again in Formula One. He's probably just going to be champion before the summer break even happens. So at least one of my teams is winning. But all in all, I miss hockey. I'm excited for the Red Wings next season. They'll be better. How much better? I don't know. But they'll be better. So that's all I got for you.
My final thoughts are Matt said these are my final thoughts twice, and let's go Red Wings twice, and just kept on going after that. And yes, go Red Wings. To be honest, I only want the Islanders to do bad because of that draft pick. So to be honest, now it's just a laughing joke at this point. Whatever Lou Lamoriello doesn't even let any of his players grow beards because he's just an old dude like that. Just old timer, whatever. He needs to be shipped off into a casket somewhere, whatever. That guy needs to be out. Once he's out, though, they'll probably hire Ken Holland or something to be not the 31st worst general manager, but the 32nd finally. So
don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Hopefully the Red Wings could be a playoff teams. Am I expecting that? No. Am I hopeful that they could be? Yes, maybe they can pull Florida Panthers on them, and maybe we just have to rely on Alex Lyon once again to do that, and we can give them an 8x8 year deal or something. So once again, go Red Wings, and y'all have a great day, night, evening, however you're watching, however you're listening. We appreciate y'all stopping by. So goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.